CNN, considered by all to be the most trusted name in news. Why, it's the company's slogan, so it must be true. Everybody knows that CNN is always going to be honest. You see, recently Brian Stelter of CNN wrote this article, how the news media covered domestic terrorism on Capitol Hill, rightly referring to what was happening in D.C. as domestic terrorism and telling us exactly how the media covered it. Good job, Brian. I would just like to add an addendum to your article by pointing out, how did CNN cover domestic terrorism on Capitol Hill? Why, they put one of these domestic terrorists on TV, acting as though the individual was a documentarian and filmmaker, and allowed them to espouse their views, which of course was all lies. Because now we know that this guy, John Earl Sullivan, a Black Lives Matter activist and organizer who was on the ground, he's been indicted. I believe he's been arrested. He has been arrested. And according to the affidavit from the FBI, he was cheering things on. He was yelling, "We did it. It's ours." He's seen in other videos calling for burning it down, burning things down. We're going to burn this down. He started a group called Insurgents USA. So you mean to tell me that CNN did zero vetting of this guy? Yes. Remarkable. Meanwhile, Richie McGinnis, a reporter for the Daily Caller, was defamed by the New York Times as a rioter, and he's a credentialed reporter. That's the name of the game, baby. You work for an outlet like the Daily Caller, they don't care. They won't fact check. They don't do any work. How did this guy, who is on video in Provo, Utah, yelling about burning it down, how did he get past CNN? Well, could it be that CNN just doesn't care and they want to prop up these people? What did Don Lemon say? Don Lemon said, if you voted for Trump, then you're on the side of the Klan and the Nazis. So this guy who didn't vote for Trump, it's fine what he did, right? No, of course not. Reality is broken, my friends. It is completely broken. Of course, there are fringe far-right conspiracy theorists. But what about the left not being called out by any institution? I'm sorry. What's happening in this country is not so simple. If you watch nothing but the mainstream media or CNN, they will be literally putting domestic terrorists in your face to espouse psychotic ideology and lie to you. That's what they're doing because they live in the exact same bubble. Now, the problem is because of the traditional power held by these institutions, other corporations are terrified of them and just fall in line with far left fringe terror ideologies and extremism. Think about this now. If you're a far leftist domestic terrorist who stormed the Capitol, CNN will give you space. They won't bother looking into your background. Why? Because you're on the left. Seriously? And if you're Richie McGinnis, the New York Times will lie? No joke. The New York Times put up a caption saying that Richie punched the glass and broke it. They made that up. It's not real. He never did that. And this guy, the FBI is arrested, was cheering it on. The Daily Mail reports, a left-wing activist who told CNN he went inside the Capitol building during last Wednesday's siege merely to document the chaos has now been arrested by police. According to the Department of Justice, John Earl Sullivan, 26, was not simply a passive observer inside the Capitol after video emerged purportedly showing him encouraging the rioters. Black Lives Matter protester Sullivan, who's based in Utah, was charged Thursday with one count of knowingly entering a restricted building, one count of violent entry and disorderly conduct on Capitol grounds, and one count of interfering with law enforcement. According to a release by the DOJ, Sullivan, wearing a ballistics vest and gas mask, entered the U.S. Capitol through a window that had been broken out, pushing past U.S. Capitol Police on one side. He filmed multiple videos of the event before posting them to YouTube under his username JadenX. In one of the clips, he is seemingly heard encouraging other rioters as they enter the building. In fact, according to the affidavit, he's telling the officers to stand down because they've effectively lost. He's like, it's over. You can't stop them. You'll get hurt. Stand down. Stand down. Because this guy is an extremist. And that's what's fascinating is it shows, call them Antifa, call them Black Lives Matter, whatever. Leftist extremists have an interest in the storming of the Capitol. I mentioned this before any of this happened, before the Capitol happened. I said, what happens when these leftist Antifa types realize they have an opportunity now to stand side by right-wingers who hate the cops? What happens when they storm in? Now, there's a funny meme going around of Kevin Sorbo. You may know him as he played Hercules. And he's got a series of tweets. And the meme is, it's the clown meme where the guy's dressing up like a clown. And the first one is he says, it's happening. The next one is history is being made. The next one is behave, don't be like Antifa, be respectful. And then the last one is Antifa dressed like Trump supporters to storm the Capitol and frame Trump supporters. And on the left, they're all laughing about how stupid Kevin Sorbo is, so dumb. Oh my, how did he believe? Oh, wait a minute. This guy, John Earl Sullivan, did. Well, there's at least some photos showing him wearing a Trump hat. And yes, but let me be real. It's one guy so far, maybe a couple others. There's apparently one younger guy. Well, I shouldn't say younger, but he's like in his 30s. And he's the son of a Brooklyn judge. Look, if you come to me and you tell me there were no leftists there, I'm not going to believe you. I'm sorry. I'm not going to come out and say it's true. Antifa stormed the gates and it's their fault. No, because we know for a fact it was Trump supporters. And it's seemingly most of them. But if you're going to pretend that Antifa types, leftists, did not take advantage of this because they want much of the same thing when it comes to targeting the Capitol building, you're going to be wrong, man. You're just wrong. Now let's talk about what Antifa even really means. This guy's a leftist. He's a Black Lives Matter activist, but many left-wing organizations view him as a provocateur and just an instigator. And they booted him out of their group saying he's fake. They don't believe him. They don't believe he's a real activist. The left disavows the guy. But come on. You can say that he's not, the left doesn't like him, but the dude's clearly not a Trump supporter. You can argue that maybe he just wants to watch the world burn, more like a Joker type. And I'd say, okay, fine. But I think the dude is on the left. Why? The people he does still surround himself with, the networks he does go on. He may not be liked by these people, but it's true. Now let's talk about Antifa. They say there were no Antifa people who, the feds say it, the media says it. Which is it? Is Antifa a group that exists that you must be a member of? Or is Antifa just an idea that if you're anti-fascist, you are Antifa? You get the point? You see, the thing here is when people say Antifa, they're not saying that the guy's a card-carrying member of Antifa International. They're saying that he is associated with the ideology and the cell-like structure of Antifa groups, and that his action storming the Capitol, it's colloquially referred to as Antifa. I'm not a fan. I think you got to be more specific. I think you got to say he's Black Lives Matter. Why? Because there are Antifa groups you can be a card-carrying member of. I mean, not literally carrying a card, but you can actually be a member of specific cells. So when the media says Antifa is just an idea, then fine, the guy's Antifa, isn't he? But it's not. So colloquially, people will call the guy Antifa, but there are actual organizations. They go on to say, quote, here's a quote from the guy. "We got to get this S burned." He purportedly states before adding, "It's our house, mother effer." Elsewhere in the recorded clips, he says to the rioters, "You guys are effing savage. Let's go. This S is ours. F yeah. I can't believe this is reality." The DOJ further alleges he told rioters, "We accomplished this S. We are all a part of this history." However, Sullivan painted a far different picture of his time inside the Capitol when he spoke with Anderson Cooper on CNN. He appeared in the cable news network alongside a documentary filmmaker, with the pair portrayed as passively watching the chaos unfold. Remarkably, in the video footage released, you can hear this woman yelling, "We did it, we did it." And he's like, "It's going to be the best film you've ever made." No, it's going to be the best evidence she ever recorded of herself storming the Capitol. Look, there's a fine line between acts of journalism and participating. And you got to be very, very careful. There's Elijah Schaffer of The Blaze. And he posted a photo from inside, I believe it's Nancy Pelosi's office, of a computer with an exposed email. You can read it. And he said there's the current revolution and revolutionaries. And when everyone saw that, they viewed him as a participant. Perhaps, I don't know exactly what Elijah was doing. He is a Trump supporter. He is on the right. We've had him on the IRL podcast. But there's a fine line between saying things that you roll your eyes at and actually documenting him, encouraging people to do anything, or actively participating in the destruction and the storming of the Capitol. I've heard now that he may be under investigation. I don't know if that's true. But you look at how the right gets treated and how the left gets treated. It's amazing. When Elijah Schaffer went in, and he's got credentials. This is the funny thing. Elijah has press credentials to be there. We saw Mashable say that YouTubers were making money off documenting this. And then Elijah got banned from Facebook and Instagram. Then we saw Glenn Beck intervene saying, this is one of our reporters. He's got credentials. He's a member of the media. Then apparently the ban got reversed. I mentioned Richie McGinnis. CNN, without vetting these people, put them on TV. So, Brian, will you now apologize for your network putting domestic terrorism on TV to lie about what was really going on? No, because reality is broken. You know that the left has psychotic Q-like conspiracies where they believe there are secret messages being sent and, various government agencies are working behind the scenes. I'm not even kidding. You've heard of QAnon. You've heard about it because the leftists in media freak out about it. But you've not heard about what the left believes, the fringe cuckoo conspiracies. You may have heard some of this because it does bleed out into the mainstream, and conservatives sometimes will call it out. You may have heard that at some point, one individual on Twitter with hundreds of thousands of followers and a blue check mark said that the DOJ was investigating Steve Bannon for treason and that he was going to be executed. That's insane. That never happened. It's not going to happen. The worst they've done is they've banned him from YouTube. Okay, well, he got that one charge pertaining to the build the wall thing. And then you have, you have Russia. You have Donald Trump being a Soviet asset. You have all of that insane, unhinged garbage. Conservatives, I think, don't highlight these fringe conspiracy theorists because it empowers them. But the media does. The media helps them sell books. The media puts domestic terrorism on TV and defends it. So now you can imagine, based on what's happening in Washington, D.C., people are starting to freak out. What is it, like 20,000 National Guardsmen? Let me tell you something. There's a lot of National Guard in D.C., and I'm glad. And I hope they keep D.C. safe, and I hope we have a peaceful transition because you do not want conflict. And a lot of people, they email me saying, Tim, you're wrong. With the cold civil war is getting hot and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, bro, you don't want war. You don't. Some people might. Some people who actually know what it is, sure. I'm not going to claim it's absolute that nobody wants this. But I'll tell you this. The people in this country are pampered and spoiled. And if you actually see what conflict is like, you will beg for the day that we go back to the way things were. I mentioned this the other day on the IRL podcast. There's this comic, and it's a guy, and he's like, I wish things were different. And then it shows him like smashing everything with a baseball bat. And then the next panel is everything destroyed, and he goes, oh no. It's a great comic. I love the oh no comics. It's hilarious. If you're concerned about what's going on, and you're worried about what the future holds, and you want to make a change, I assure you, any kind of conflict or violence will just result in calamity that won't get you what you want. When when we reach a point where the far left says it's my way or the highway, and the right says, well, we're gonna stand up. We're not gonna allow you to do this. You don't get to cleanly build whatever you want. Even the left isn't getting everything they want, but they are taking they're taking ground. They've got the House, they've got the Senate, now they got the presidency. So the right is saying no to this. If it really does come to violent clashes, like the government apparently believes, no one's going to get what they want. It's going to be just worse for everybody. So I say the key to winning is building culture and persuasion, but a lot of people don't agree. Let me show you this tweet here. Colby Satterfield reports. She's with WUSA 9. Small town Missouri native says, in 1 week, D.C. has turned into a secure military zone with 20,000 National Guard troops expected to be on the ground by Inauguration 2021. A retired major general for the U.S. Army said he hasn't heard of this much security for an inauguration since Abraham Lincoln. Why? No, for real, why? I don't think they would be taking this action unless they had actionable intelligence. I've not heard anything. Have you? Look, I got my ears to the ground, man. I follow this stuff. They're talking about nationwide protests. I've not heard anything. You know what I have heard? I've heard Trump supporters disavow. I've seen the Donald.win say, not legitimate protests. We're not going to participate in this. It's fake. That's what I've heard. I've heard people say, stay away from the inauguration. I've heard Trump supporters saying this, many of whom are furious over what's happening. So what's going on? Could it be it's not about Trump? and there really is something expected to happen. I mean, listen, when this reporter says, since Abraham Lincoln, cue the conspiracies, because now people are saying, oh, Lincoln. Remember when Dan Scavino took a picture of Trump looking at the portrait of Lincoln? Abraham Lincoln. I wonder why. I don't know, man. I don't know what we can expect, but the conspiracy theories, I think, are nuts. There are people on the right who think that Trump is going to pull some last-ditch ultimate Hail Mary from 1,000 yards away and the ball gets struck by lightning 10 times while it lands in a field of people who all won the lottery at the same time. It's not going to happen. Maybe something happens. They're certainly worried about something. Makes me think maybe they know something we don't. And I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, they probably do know things we don't. From the Daily Mail. Biden's inauguration rehearsal is postponed over security concerns hours after National Guard were authorized to use lethal force in defense of Capitol, and FBI Director Chris Wray warned of chatter about violence nationwide. I think they know something we don't. And maybe it's not, it doesn't seem like it's going to be Trump supporters, but there are people that I've said are like Trump supporters second. And what I mean by that is when Donald Trump said, go home and in peace, Trump supporters said, you got it, because they support the president. But there are many people who view Trump as a means to an end, and they're Trump supporters second. Many of these people may be militia first. They may consider themselves American first. They may be planning things we don't know about, and the FBI might. I've seen, people flocking to gun stores recently. So, I went, I was out eating yesterday and there was a local gun shop and I went in and just picked up a couple box of large game shells because we actually had a bear scare recently. So we put up some lights. There was a very large animal. A dog was freaking out. And so, I'm in the shop. And I'm like, we're going to, we need to protect ourselves. It's interesting how the left doesn't really understand this kind of thing happens. And we're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. There's not a whole lot of bears, but there are bears. And so when we had this large animal scare in the dead of night, it wasn't the dead of night. It was just dark out. I think it was like 6 o'clock. And this large animal rustling. We have deer, so maybe it was deer. But, so I go to the shop and I'm like, I need something, what you got. So I picked a couple boxes. And but there was a ton of people. And they're buying up a storm. And I was like, been busy, huh? And the guy said, it's been crazy since Monday. Just absolutely insane. I don't think it's because these people are planning anything. I think it's because people are on edge. People are scared. And they're like, I don't know, man. I'm just going to get what I can while I can get it. And I'm like, I'm just trying to get someone to deal with the animals. Just like a home defense shotgun and maybe something to scare away a bear if I have to. Something that, I don't even know if it's a good idea. And when you have a bear, I'm only talking about like in the most dire of circumstances. Like I'm not going to confront a bear. You know what I mean? But it's still important to have something, not just to be left with nothing. Because I'll be honest with you guys, as much as there are lunatic conspiracy theorists claiming that, I'm strapped to the teeth, I got a bunch of game load and like bird shot because it's just home defense stuff. And so I was like, we're out in the middle of nowhere. But anyway, look, I'm seeing these people and they're buying up a storm and kind of freaked me out. Whether or not there's going to be some kind of major event happening, I just don't know. But I can tell you this. Let me wrap this all together for you. When the media says something is being planned and there's chaos and there's protests, and then you see how they treat the left, how they prop up literal domestic terrorists on the left on CNN, I just don't believe them. I think they're out of their minds. I think they're insane. But there's something different when 20,000 National Guard troops are called in, when a memo is released saying that the election is over, Biden has won, this is not being contested, to all of these soldiers, it makes you wonder about how scared they are about a real civil war. And I'll tell you this. I was talking to some conservatives years ago, and I said, many of you follow me know that I've been saying, like, I think a civil war is coming. And I've had many prominent conservatives tell me in private, you're wrong, you're crazy, it can never happen. The security state would never allow it. And I'm like, you realize the FBI is people, right? You realize the National Guard is people, right? Do you think the people in the National Guard don't watch the news? Do you think they don't vote? Do you think they're not on social media? They're human beings like everybody else. So what happens? The divide we see among ourselves probably runs deep across law enforcement agencies, the government, the military. And I said, what do you think happens when you get soldiers waking up one day reading the news and they fall on one side of the culture war? They're going to defend the same things you will. What happens when it gets to the point where the left is viewed as like a conspiracy cabal by the right, and the right is the evil fascist dictatorship by the left, and there's a divide between different soldiers? Then what? Just like we saw with Antifa and the Proud Boys, don't be surprised if you see the same thing happen with law enforcement and the military, because they're people. Now, it's funny, man, I'll tell you, they were wrong. They said it could never happen. It won't reach government, because this is the time when it was just Antifa fighting the Proud Boys. And it was when the Proud Boys first started entering the fray, because we've seen Antifa doing this for a long time. The Proud Boys stepped up because Antifa was beating on old people. And I said, here you go. Now the left has found their villain, their fascists, and the right has said, here are the communists. We're not going to back down. And the culture war spread since then. So maybe there's something that the government knows that we don't. I don't know. I hope nothing crazy happens. I just want to go back to watching movies, hanging out with friends, maybe get some sports, have some pizza and wings. Realize that this is a serious political battle. It's the cold civil war, but we don't want hot conflict. We just want arguments. You know what I mean? And the key to success in the long term is not going to be any kind of violence. For conservatives, the key is having kids, teaching your kids, and building culture to inspire the youth, because the left is doing that right now. They dominate the video game platforms. They dominate social media. And that's always been the case. The Daily Wire is doing it. They're making movies. That's the key to success. Culture. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.